Welcome in. Happy Wednesday. It is time for another episode of the Chiefs Zone podcast. Appreciate you guys joining me live on Facebook and YouTube. And for those who are watching later on, a big thank you to all of you guys. Big episode here tonight as we have a big game to preview and break down the Chiefs and Chargers Sunday Night Football, a big AFC West divisional matchup, and a Chiefs victory does give the Chiefs the AFC West. The Chiefs clinched the playoffs last week. Let's see if they can clinch the AFC West this week. I'll break that game down, give you guys my score prediction, let you know everything you need to know about the Chargers offense, defense, and special teams facets of the game. Also, some news to go over, some roster moves, some comments, and look at, some potential changes that could be coming to the Chiefs, specifically at left tackle and at cornerback. And there's one player who's quietly playing better, and a lot of people are not talking about it. So we'll discuss that and more here on this episode of the Chiefs Zone podcast. I'm Farzin Vasugian. Appreciate you guys joining me here tonight for this episode of the Chiefs Zone podcast. Hey, for those of you who are watching live, want to let you know, in exactly 2 hours, 9:15 Central Time, we are doing Farscast. I get this question, is Farscast gone? Is it extinct with the dinosaur? No, it is not. We just haven't had a lot of time for that. But it will be back. We will be doing Farscast tonight. Might be the second to last one. We'll try to fit one more before Christmas, but Farscast will be back tonight. So just so you guys know. But for now, we will keep it to the Kansas City Chiefs. Before we get into all of these topics, because we've got a lot to discuss, want to let you know this podcast is brought to you by SeatGeek. Obviously, football season starting to wind down. College basketball, the NBA, NHL in full swing. And if you guys want to check out any of those sporting events, all you've got to do is go to SeatGeek.com. That is where I go for all of my sports ticketing needs. And new customers can use my promo code Farzin, and you'll save $20 off your first purchase from SeatGeek. Go to SeatGeek.com, pick your tickets, and new customers at checkout can use my promo code Farzin and save $20 off their first purchase from SeatGeek. All right, I see you guys in the chat here. Appreciate you guys who are tuning in, watching live. Let's get some interactions here because we got a lot of things to go over, and I'd love to hear all of your guys' commentary on some of the news, some of the things we're going to be discussing tonight. Let's first get the roster move out of the way. The Chiefs have placed kicker Spencer Schrader on IR. Yes, another player to IR. Shocker. Spencer Schrader unfortunately played just one game. It was a great game from him as he kicked the game-winning field goal against the Panthers with time winding down, and they have elevated Matthew Wright, who obviously played great last week, going 4 of 5 when the Chiefs offense stalled, especially in the red zone. So he was able to come through with those 4 field goals, and the one miss was from 59 yards right before halftime, so you can't really hold that against him. And Matthew Wright's kicked for the Chiefs before, so obviously the Chiefs have some familiarity with him. They like him. He was with Seattle for a little bit, suffered a little bit of an injury there, but was let go, and now he's made his way to Kansas City. So Matthew Wright is going to be the kicker for the short-term future moving forward for Kansas City. All right, let's get into Travis Kelce. If you guys listened to the New Heights podcast earlier today, came out early this morning, Travis Kelce had some very interesting comments here talking about some of the struggles the Chiefs offense has had this season. And if you guys want the quote, here it is. He's talking about the struggles on offense, specifically in the red zone. And he said some things that I think kind of concerned me and concerned some Chiefs fans. I know it concerned some of you guys when you saw this quote. He says, quote, "The biggest thing and keep in mind, this is from the New Heights podcast. The biggest thing from me, for me, and where I take a lot of pride once we get into the red zone, I get a little hungrier. And right now, for whatever reason, this year, I just can't find my way in the end zone." He only has 2 touchdowns this season. "I'm just not on the same page as Pat. And it can get frustrating. It can get fucking frustrating. That's for damn sure." So that is Travis Kelce's quote from the New Heights podcast, talking about the struggles on offense and not being able to get into the end zone, especially more specifically when the Chiefs are in the red zone. Those were some interesting comments there from Travis Kelce. Listen, Travis Kelce's not going to sugarcoat anything. I mean, listen, the Chiefs had a lot of struggles last year, more losses than I think a lot of us anticipated. The most losses in the Patrick Mahomes era. Boo-hoo, they still won 11 football games. But there were some concerns and some questions. And Travis Kelce, every single week, never shied away from doing a podcast. He and his brother, every single week they do the podcast. I think they record them on a Tuesday sometime, which makes sense because that is when the NFL players are off usually on Tuesdays. And then it gets uploaded Wednesdays. So, Kelce's had some time to kind of reflect since then, but he seems very angry about the way that game went. And listen, he's not the only one. Obviously, every single Chiefs fan watching is kind of fed up with some of the offensive struggles that we've seen recently with the Chiefs. And he was talking about the red zone struggles. The Chiefs right now are 24th in red zone offense. Coming off the bye, the Chiefs were actually playing better in the red zone. And their third down efficiency improved. I think they were top 10 in both red zone offense and third down. They're number one in third down efficiency. But that red zone efficiency has went back. They have regressed heavily in that. Some of it's the play calling. Some of it might be execution. Could be a mix of both. You're just not seeing that killer instinct with this Chiefs football team. And I can understand Kelce's frustrations because he said before the season, he does not want a smaller workload. He wants to continue to do what he's done his entire career. And hey, makes sense. He's fifth in the NFL in receptions. I think a lot of people are forgetting about that. Like with Travis Kelce, okay, he's 35 years old, but he's still top 5 in the NFL among all tight ends in receptions and receiving yards. People kind of don't realize that with Travis Kelce. I mean, he's a 35-year-old still putting up big numbers. Now, you're not seeing a lot of flashy play from tight ends in general this year compared to recent years. I mean, the best tight end in the NFL right now is Brock Bowers. And he's doing a lot of great things. And listen, for what it's worth, if I had a vote, which I don't because I'm not a writer, I don't cover the NFL, my vote for Offensive Rookie of the Year goes to Brock Bowers, 100%. And Bo Nix would be at number 2. I know a lot of people say, oh, what about Jaden Daniels? Well, they've kind of slipped lately. Jaden Daniels isn't putting the monster stats. I mean, he had it recently against Tennessee, but he's not putting up the monster stats he once had earlier in the season. But I digress. The point I'm trying to make here with the tight ends, we're not seeing a lot of flashy play at the tight end position right now. And Kelce is still one of the more productive and better tight ends right now, even at 35 years old. So, again, I think a lot of people are kind of 35 or 34. I can't remember. What is his age right now? I want to say it's 35. He turned 35 in October. So, again, for people who want to criticize Kelce and say he's not the same, how many tight ends are doing better than him right now? Not many. Not a whole lot. But the frustration, I kind of thought it was interesting for him to publicly say that he and Pat are not on the same page. I don't know if that was just him talking emotionally and maybe just not thinking twice when he said that. Because I don't think, look, I hate to address this, but I'm going to do it. We've already addressed this before. And I don't know. It's just weird how people come to these conclusions here. I've seen some comments. People are saying that, there are issues between Brittany Mahomes and Taylor Swift. They're not sitting in the same suite anymore. You hardly see them together, and that they could be beefing because of politics. And I'm just like, Jesus Christ, man. The election was a month ago. I'm ready to move on from it just as much as anyone else. I mean, listen, I know there's some people who are thrilled, and that's great. You're thrilled, but to inject this whole thing into, look, ever since Patrick Mahomes has come to Kansas City, his life, his personal life, has really been under a microscope. I mean, sometimes the things that, and I notice, I don't think Brittany tweets anymore. And I know we're getting a little off topic here, but I'll get to my point. Because people think that there are some personal things that could be getting in the way of Kelce and Mahomes, and that Brittany and Taylor are fighting. Okay. And I just hate that I have to address this, but it is a narrative that's out there by some Chiefs fans, including on my social media comments. But, Brittany used to have these weird cryptic tweets that made it clear there was some family drama going on. Randy Mahomes, Patrick's mother, definitely let it be known that there was some family drama going on. Listen, and look, I don't want to be critical of family members because they don't. I mean, they have Patrick's family; they have a big platform. But I mean, it's just things like the week of the Super Bowl in Miami, Super Bowl 54. Randy's tweeting very cryptic things. The week of Thanksgiving, actually tagging Patrick and his brother. The night before Patrick's wedding, she tweeted something saying that, if you don't want me in your life, all you got to do is let me know. I'm like, who tweets this? Like, when you're a public figure, who tweets this the night before their son's wedding? And their son is a, international superstar. Like, what is going on? Well, what's the deal here? Because now everyone follows anyone that's connected to Patrick. People even follow Patrick's sister, who's, I think, elementary aged. So, and obviously, if you see her Instagram, it says that it's run by her mom. So, okay. But still, people want to follow Patrick's very young sister, which I kind of think is a little creepy, if I'm being honest. But everyone wants every bit of Patrick Mahomes, whether it's his, at the time they were boyfriend and girlfriend, now his wife, his brother, with the TikToks and all the other crazy things that we've seen with Jackson, his father, who used to be a pitcher in the major leagues, his mother, and then a couple other people who are connected to the Mahomes faction, if you will, not just family members. So, listen, I don't know, man. Anthony says lesser man would have cracked under the stuff Patrick has dealt with. Listen, Patrick has to deal with his wife and his brother getting attacked daily. Again, I know Brittany's kind of reduced some of her social media output, so maybe that's not as much, but I don't know, man. I just think it's weird people inject that stuff into these things. I don't know, man. I don't subscribe to that. I really don't. But there are people out there who do, and they think that is a legitimate reason why Kelce and Mahomes aren't able to have the type of season that they're having. I don't know, man. I mean, look, if you believe in that, fine. I mean, we don't have any evidence of that being the case or not being the case, but Kelce did look frustrated on Friday. Andy Reid went over to him on the sidelines. You can see that in the second half. I'm guessing it might have been a comment about, hey, look, we may not get you that record in this one. Because Tony Gonzalez, he was upset. He could not break the NFL record for most receiving yards by a tight end at home. Remember the Chiefs snapped a 12-game losing streak against Denver in 2008? Everyone was happy except for Gonzalez. So I'm sure Kelce, there's a little bit of him being upset because he didn't break the record. It was Thanksgiving week. It was a holiday week. So I'm sure he had a lot of family and friends in town and he wanted to break it all in front of them. I can understand that. But look, I think there's this weird idea that players are selfish. If they're upset, they don't get to break a record, at home. And come on, man. Everyone wants to be able to have the moment in front of as many loved ones as possible. I remember, listen, maybe some people just don't care. Maybe some people want to make it look like they don't care. I remember Bill Self was asked if he wanted like his 300th win at Allen Fieldhouse, and he just responded, was like, really? You asked me that? Come on, man. We all know you want to have that special moment at home. I can't buy that you don't want it on the road. But those are Travis Kelce's comments on the New Heights podcast. Now, I do want to talk about some positive things with this offense here. We'll get into the offensive line because I know that is a big topic of discussion here. Xavier Worthy, he has gradually played better, and a lot of people are not talking about it. And I think part of the reason is right now, a lot of this stuff is overshadowed with the offensive tackles. And I'll get to the offensive tackles very soon because that is a very important talking point right now with this Chiefs offense. But Xavier Worthy, he's starting to play better football. I don't know if a lot of people have noticed this, but he's playing better. He just came off a game against the Raiders where he had 5 receptions. Those 5 receptions are the most he's had in a single game this year. Back-to-back games against Carolina and Buffalo, he had 4 receptions each in those games, totaling for 103 yards. And now he's close to 160 yards in the last 3 games. Now, Should be more. Obviously, those deep passes there, Mahomes missing on the Buffalo one, and part of it also Xavier's feet should have stayed in. But I think you got to take it a step back, and that Mahomes should have gotten the ball to him a little bit sooner. Kind of like I think it was in the Saints game a couple of times. I know in the Tampa Bay Monday night game, that was an issue. I think another similar one against Denver. So they've had those weird issues near the sidelines where they just can't connect. Either Mahomes overthrows it or Worthy's struggling to keep his feet in bounds. But, Worthy was already wide open before where he was trying to catch the ball. If Mahomes gets it to him a half a second sooner, Worthy doesn't have to make a very difficult catch near the sidelines. And instead, he probably has, I would argue, 3 more touchdowns on the season. And how much of this is on the offensive line? You probably have a lot to do with the offensive line, and I'll get to that. But let me just go over Xavier Worthy because he had 5 receptions against the Raiders for 54 yards. Last week, or almost a week and a half ago, against the Panthers, 4 receptions for 46, and then against the Bills, 4 for 61 and a touchdown. So Xavier Worthy, starting to get more involved statistically speaking. He's having a good rookie season. If you've been paying attention to the Chiefs games this year, you'll know Xavier Worthy is doing what it takes to get open. His route running is exceptional to me, and his ability to create separation from defensive backs that are trying to defend against him is pretty damn good also. So Xavier Worthy is doing what is expected out of him. It's just those deep connections are not falling into place. And that was the big advertise with Xavier Worthy, is that he had this big record-breaking 40 time at the combine, and he's got the Tyreek Hill type speed, all of that stuff. This guy could bring back those explosive plays that the Chiefs haven't had much of since they let Tyreek Hill go. And he had one of those against the Chargers in week 4 in LA. But we haven't seen much of that since then. In fact, we've seen a lot of misses on those. He had 3 receptions for 73 yards in that Chargers game. He had the 54-yard touchdown that helped put Kansas City on the scoreboard and eventually helping them rally and come back against the Chargers. But he hasn't had a lot of those types of games where he's had over 40 or 50 yards until the Buffalo game a couple of weeks ago, where he had 61 yards, had 46 against the Panthers, had 54 most recently last Friday against the Raiders. So he is playing better football with the Chiefs. He and Mahomes are starting to get into a rhythm, and that is very important. Noah Gray, this guy's got the hot hand recently. He's playing some really good football. Might be the best number 2 tight end in the NFL right now. Him and Travis Kelce have a strong 1-2 duo at the tight end position. We don't normally talk about 1-2 duos at the tight end spot. We've seen it a couple times. You got a good one right now in Baltimore with Isaiah Likely and Mark Andrews. I think Buffalo, maybe not this season, but in the past, they've had a good duo with Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox. But yeah, I think the Chiefs have got a good thing going here with Noah Gray and Travis Kelce. Again, Kelce, I think people are not really paying attention, not noticing. He's actually having a better season than people are really giving him credit for. I mentioned Noah Gray. He's doing a good job. Xavier Worthy starting to pick things up. Another person really picking things up specifically with this scheme and offense is DeAndre Hopkins. We mentioned the numbers with Patrick Mahomes. Hopkins has now played with the Chiefs for 6 weeks now, 6 games. And in the last 6 games, Patrick Mahomes, his numbers are far better. 13 touchdowns and 3 picks in the last 6 games compared to his first 6 games, where it was 6 touchdowns and 8 picks. And if you've noticed, people love to talk about Mahomes and his stats the first 6 games. Everyone wanted to chime in on those interception numbers. Now, suddenly, you're not hearing a lot of people talk about those interception numbers with Mahomes because he has not really turned the ball over much. In fact, in the last 6 games, I believe Mahomes, the only game where he's had an interception was against the Buffalo Bills. And the Chiefs, by the way, are doing a much better job of taking care of the football in these last 6 games. You're not seeing the Chiefs turn the ball over much. They didn't turn it over against Carolina. They didn't turn it over against the Raiders. And that's great because those 2 games, both of them, we all know, came down to the wire. And had Kansas City made any kind of a mistake when it came to lack of ball security, that probably would have been the big difference maker. There were no turnovers in the Chiefs-Raiders game until the last 15 seconds when the Raiders fumbled. And at the most critical moment of the game, the Raiders make their first big blunder of the game, and that was enough to cost them at the worst time possible. You got to take care of the football. And, the Raiders were very careless in that final sequence of events there when where it looked like they should have probably kicked the field goal to win. Instead, they wanted to run off one more play because they didn't want to give Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs enough time, which makes complete sense. But boy, Kansas City's getting some things in their favors, and that's okay. But in general, I mean, you look at the Chiefs right now, they're doing a better job of taking care of the football, and they're not making those big mistakes. By the way, a lot of people, I think, my MVP vote would go to Saquon Barkley. Some people would pick Josh Allen, and I think that's perfectly reasonable. He's having a phenomenal season this year. Maybe I would argue the best, especially when it comes to taking care of the football. Now, if I told you Josh Allen's numbers, he has 2,600 yards, 20 touchdowns, 5 picks. Those are good numbers. But there's another quarterback out there who's throwing for almost 3,000 yards, specifically 2,900 yards, 19 touchdowns, 1 touchdown less than Josh Allen. And he's got 11 interceptions, so a little bit more than Allen, 6 more than Allen. Oh, that guy's Patrick Mahomes. So Patrick Mahomes has close to, give or take, 300 yards more than Josh Allen, 1 passing touchdown less. I'm sure Allen's rushing numbers are more. And the interception numbers, 6 more for Mahomes. But again, recently, he's done a much better job taking care of the football. But for whatever reason, people think he's washed, not playing so well, and isn't really doing much, which I find very interesting. So people kind of criticizing Patrick Mahomes. His numbers are not too far off compared to some of the other quarterbacks in the NFL right now. I mean, he's doing a better job of ball security and also going out there, getting the ball to the end zone. Now, most recently, not so much, but again, 13 touchdowns and 3 picks in the last 6 games, I think tells a much different story compared to the first 6 games. But again, I said this before, the narrative doesn't fit with how Mahomes is doing. He's 9th in the NFL in passing yards. He was much lower earlier in the year. When you just look around, Jared Goff is right above him, has 3 yards more than Mahomes. Matthew Stafford right above Goff with 1 more yard. So, Mahomes is in good company here. And I know Stafford's kind of had an up and down year. Well, the Rams in general have had an up and down year, but Stafford's done a good job this year. Jared Goff, I mean, he's playing some good football. Did have that one really weird game where he threw 5 picks, but his numbers are not too far off from Patrick Mahomes. He has 3 more passing touchdowns and 2 fewer interceptions. So you have a pretty good season with Patrick Mahomes. There is always something happening at the exact moment of this podcast. Whoa. I don't know if you guys can see that, but that my house just shook. Did you guys notice that? I have either dogs barking with my neighbors or my other neighbor mowing the lawn. Now we've got a helicopter literally right above my house. It's always it's like they know I'm doing the podcast. Well, I mean, it is streaming live, so of course they know, but I don't know if you guys saw that, but I'll have to go back and look because I was not looking at myself, but this place shook for a second. It did. But neither here nor there. Mahomes is playing better football. Now, he'll be playing much better if the Chiefs can make some improvements at the left tackle spot. And Andy Reid, he's been getting asked a lot of questions about the left tackle spot with Wanye Morris, Kingsley Suamataia. Why is he struggling so much? Is it an alien invasion? I sure as hell hope not. This would not be a great time for that to happen. Listen, man, I want to see this three-peat. Let me witness a three-peat, and then you can, have the alien invasion. Kingsley Suamataia has struggled, obviously. They for 3 plays shifted Joe Tooney from guard to left tackle. And now you have DJ Humphries in the mix. And again, Monday's press conference and on Wednesday's press conference, today's press conference, Andy Reid's been getting a lot of questions from the media about the left tackle spot. And listen, I've been critical about the media with some of the weird questions they ask. And listen, a couple of those people I know, I'm buds with, but I'll give it to the media. They've been asking some really good questions lately, specifically about the offensive line here. And Andy Reid did not commit to a guy who's going to start at left tackle. He's basically saying the same thing he said on Monday, where he's going to evaluate everybody, see where DJ Humphries is at. But he gave off this tone like, yeah, we know Wanye Morris and Kingsley Suamata are really bad, and we don't prefer to put Joe Thuney at left tackle. We want him to stay where he excels at left guard, and we would love for DJ Humphries to play at left tackle. And listen, being in football shape is an important thing. When you're on the couch for a majority of the year, kind of like how Kareem Hunt was at the beginning of the year, that can be a thing. Isaiah Pacheco last week only got the ball 7 times. Last week, as did Kareem Hunt, which, should have been different, but it is what it is. Pacheco didn't have as many carries as because he, not necessarily in football shape. He's been on the shelf for a while, and they've been trying to gradually put him back into the fold. We'll get into the breakdown later on in the podcast, but the Chiefs absolutely need to utilize the running game more in this game, and we'll get into that shortly. But a lot of people are banking on, including me, that the left tackle position, if that improves, a lot of things are going to fall into place offensively. You still have an issue at the right tackle spot, and I think the Chiefs can figure that out with a tight end help or a running back help to pass block. But a lot of people are hoping that if DJ Humphries can just be average, that'll help. But my God, man, the Chiefs need 2 new offensive tackles immediately. And let me go into this. Let's dive into this one, because Wanye Morris, he has allowed 33 pressures on the season. That is tied for 6th most in the NFL. Jawan Taylor, your right tackle for the Chiefs, he has allowed 7 sacks. That is tied for 6th most in the NFL. So Wanye Morris is tied for the 6th most quarterback pressures allowed, and Jawan Taylor is tied 6th for the most sacks allowed, according to Pro Football Focus. Dude, if your goal is to let your quarterback get beat to hell, you're accomplishing your goal there. But I have a feeling the Chiefs are not trying to let their franchise quarterback, Patrick freaking Mahomes, get beat to hell. Unfortunately, that is what's happening here. Look, what is the realistic goal here? And I'm not talking, the three-peat. Yeah, I get that. But what is the realistic expectation right now from Jawan Taylor and Wanye Morris? Because I'm just being honest with you guys. I'm looking at Wanye Morris, and he has gotten worse as the season's gone along. And keep in mind, this guy didn't play much in the first game. I don't think played at all in the first game. And in the second game, he came in the 4th quarter when Kingsley Suamata was struggling immensely against Trey Hendrickson. And I'm just kind of looking at, Wanye Morris. It's like, dude, you're tied for 6th and pressures allowed, and you missed. You essentially did not play the first 2 games. Missed some of the Denver game. Look, when you have a franchise quarterback, the most important position after that is the left tackle spot, and all the way across the board on that offensive line there. You don't have an offensive line, you do not have a franchise quarterback. Super Bowl 55 taught you that. I mean, the Chiefs were getting through with some of the injuries there, but once you lost Eric Fisher, you lost Kelechi Osemele, you lost you lost Mitchell Schwartz. I mean, Super Bowl 55 was a nightmare from hell for Patrick Mahomes. And it wasn't just all on the offensive line. The drops played a big factor. 2 drops in the end zone. But, man, I'm just looking at this right now. This whole thing with the Chiefs offensive line, man, the interior offensive line, the best in the NFL. The offensive tackles, the absolute freaking worst in the NFL. I mean, I'm just angry reading those stats right there. Tied 6 in pressures allowed and tied 6 in sacks allowed for the left tackle on the pressures and the right tackle with the sacks. Come on, man. 2 games in a row, he's been sacked 5 times. Again, like, is your goal to let Patrick Mahomes get destroyed and obliterated? Because if that's your goal, mission accomplished. But I know that's not Kansas City's goal. So at least if you're not going to switch anyone out, I know they probably will make a change this week at left tackle, but for at least show you care about Patrick Mahomes' well-being, go put a tight end next to somebody. Come on, man. Like, this is so frustrating to watch. Kevin is saying this has to be Taylor's last season. I hope, but I don't think it is, because that contract is a horrible one. And listen, the attempt to improve the offensive tackles, it's not for a lack of effort. Look, the Chiefs let go of Eric Fisher and Mitchell Schwartz the same offseason, the same morning. I still remember. And then what they do? They got Andrew Wiley. They got Orlando Brown. And unfortunately, that was a really terrible duo in 2021. Well, it was Lucas Niang first, who was playing great. But Orlando Brown and Andrew Wiley in 2022, they were numbers 1 and 2 in the NFL, respectively, and pressures allowed. So what happened last year? They had Jawan Taylor, bringing him in from Jacksonville. They thought he would make a difference. And then they had Donovan Smith, a former Super Bowl champion, and we mentioned Super Bowl 55, and he's had some up and down years, and they brought him in to be left tackle. He was not very good. In fact, when Orlando Brown joined the Bengals, he was leading the NFL in pressures allowed. Right behind him was Donovan Smith. Donovan Smith would have been right behind Orlando Brown if Smith did not get hurt. And now this year, you have Wanye Morris, and then you also drafted Kingsley Suamataia. Morris is who you drafted last year in the 3rd round. Suamataia is who you traded up 1 pick to get him in the 2nd round. Neither one of those are panning out. And I know Andy Reid talked about this on Monday about how, they're going up against good players, and okay, but if you're going to start these guys at left tackle when you have a franchise quarterback, you can't be sitting here saying, yeah, well, they're going up against best players. Okay, but so is Creed Humphrey. So is Joe Tooney. So is Trey Smith. Why are they not getting their asses kicked every single week? In fact, they're the ones kicking ass every single week. You have 2 bad offensive tackles, and I'm not expecting Andy Reid to say it publicly. I'm not. I know no coach will ever do that. But man, and listen, I'd like to think behind closed doors, this is a really bad look. Yeah, I think Wiley's still on the Commanders. By the way, your other comment, Kyle, explain to me how Josh Allen got a receiving touchdown. I'm a little confused. Wasn't a lateral that would have be a receiving touchdown? How would that be a receiving touchdown for Allen? I don't have a good answer for you. What I will say is this, Kyle. Remember the lateral last week when Kelce pitched it back to what's his name? Samaje Perine. Samaje Perine ran 10 yards. Keep in mind, I said he ran 10 yards. So you would think that would be added to the rushing stats. That's not actually how it works. If it's on a passing play, those count as receiving yards. So Kelce had, I don't know what it was. I think he had 8 receiving yards on that play, and he pitched it back to Perine, and Perine ran 10 yards. Those all count as receiving yards. In fact, here's how weird that stat line gets. Samaje Perine at halftime, he had 10 receiving yards, no catches. Sounds weird, right? But because of the lateral, he got those 10 receiving yards despite not having a reception in the first half. So same exact logic goes with Josh Allen. He threw the ball to, I don't remember who it was. That player pitched it back to Allen, and Allen just took off for a pretty sweet play. And that ended up being a touchdown catch for Allen. So essentially what he did is he threw a touchdown pass to himself. And unfortunately, when this happened, everybody on Twitter and on NBC talked about and played replays of Marcus Mariota throwing a touchdown pass to himself. I'm going to leave that discussion there because I still hate that moment with a passion because that sucked. I'm just saying, if it's the Chiefs, NFL rigging it, yeah, that's how it works. I saw Mad Dog Russo's segment. Yeah, they get every call. Okay. It is so Kansas City's fault that the Raiders went ahead and ran a play when they probably should have just kicked a field goal. Sadly, we are stuck with Taylor until after next year. Unfortunately, this is true. You know what you can do? You can go get someone or draft someone and just have Taylor be the backup. Unfortunately, you're going to have a backup who's making a lot of money. It's not ideal. He'd be making 10 figures riding the bench, but sometimes you just got to take an L. I'll say this about Brett Veach. And look, I know a lot of people love to pick apart Brett Veach's some of his woes and weaknesses. The one big criticism of Brett Veach, he has not figured out the offensive tackle position. He has not. Absolutely has not. I thought he had it with Lucas Niang, but we just never saw him again, unfortunately. They cut him recently. But he has not figured it out with the offensive tackle, specifically at left tackle. Orlando Brown was bad. Donovan Smith was worse. And Wanya Morris is even worse. Like, you have had 3 terrible left tackles in the last 3 years. I mean, you have to try to have the worst left tackle 3 years in a row, and the Chiefs somehow found a way to do that. Yeah, the penalties are, look, I don't mind the penalties. I mean, yeah, they make you go back a bit, but at least you get a redo on your down. It's the sacks that are killers, man. That is what really upsets me personally. Yeah, the Andrew Luck, that was awful, Dalton. I agree. Here's what I will say, though, Kevin. How is it that he's not lining up correctly? Because this has been an issue for almost 2 full seasons now. Like, Andy Heck's a good offensive line coach. Andy Reid is a great head coach. But how in the hell is he still not lining up correctly? This does not compute. The logic is not logicking. How are you still not lined up correctly? I mean, listen, there's a reason why I'm a fool with a microphone right in front of me doing a podcast and not coaching. But at some point, I think you got to just send a message to Juwan Taylor and be like, dude, forget about participating with the team. The only thing you're doing today in practice is lining up correctly. Like, we'll put you with some of the practice squad guys. We're just going to practice lining up. That's it. Don't you need to do that with Juwan Taylor? I mean, I know it sounds silly, but when you're not lining up correctly for almost 2 freaking seasons, you got to do something. And because you're paying him so much money, you have to keep using him. Because if this was anybody else, you are yanking that guy's ass and he's sitting on the sidelines. But because you're paying Juwan Taylor 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 million dollars, you kind of have to use him. Like, how do you allow this guy to, like, it's kind of like the offside thing with Kadarius Toney. Because didn't that happen a week later also? And then it happened in a game this year with DeAndre Hopkins. It's like, okay, why does this keep happening with our wide receivers? That has to be a coaching issue. 100%. Again, the penalties are kind of ridiculous, but I'll take the penalties over the sacks because at least, you know, you're not letting I remember in week 2 of the 2019 season, the Chiefs put 28 points on the Raiders in the second quarter, and they didn't score again the rest of the game. They still managed to win that game. That was the same year they went on to win Super Bowl 54. But I remember Mahomes found McCole Hardman in the third quarter for a touchdown, but it got called back because LaShawn McCoy was holding. Well, if LaShawn McCoy was not holding, somebody on that Raiders defense, they would have brought Patrick Mahomes down. I mean, any opportunity you can get, like, yeah, holding penalties, illegal, use of hands, all that stuff, that sucks. But sometimes you can, in the moment, you will never say this. But if you look back at these games like I do, you'll be like, okay, Mahomes was about to get sacked, and he was trying to make sure his quarterback does not get touched in that situation. I can understand that. But my God, man, it's like you have the sacks and the penalties with Jawaan Taylor. How is that allowed this long? Man, if you're Brett Veach, do Patrick Mahomes a favor. Talk to Jawaan Taylor and his agent. Come to some sort of an agreement. You know what? We paid you all this money and you are not doing well. You're not even living up to the expectations, not even in the slightest bit. And we're just going to we'd like to come to a settlement with you. We'll pay you this much, no dead cap hit, and you can go sign elsewhere. And maybe you can get a big deal somewhere else. You have to do that way. Got to at least try to do that. Now, will Jawaan Taylor agree to it? I don't know. But shit, man, you better start playing well, because this is just abysmal here. Again, tied 6th in pressures allowed from Wanya Morris and tied 6th in sacks allowed by Jawaan Taylor. If your goal in the NFL is to let your quarterback get destroyed, the Chiefs are certainly accomplishing it. There is no way any NFL team, when they have a franchise quarterback like Mahomes and Allen, Lamar, Burrow, whoever, they would not let their quarterback experience this. I know Burrow's been dealing with a lot with his bad offensive line. Even though they've tried so much to improve that offensive line, it's just not falling into place, which is funny. I got a comment from a Bengals fan saying that if Burrow had Kansas City's offensive line, Burrow would play great. Obviously, you've never heard of Jawaan Taylor and Wanya Morris, but okay. All right. For God's sake, to all the football gods out there, get Andy Reid to start DJ Humphries. I don't care if DJ Humphries came off the street the morning of the Sunday's game. I will take that over Wanya Morris right now, because it is hard to watch Mahomes get beat almost snap after snap. Absolutely needs to be solved. One quick thing we got to go over here with the cornerback position. Obviously, during Friday's game, there was another position switch. It was Josh Williams coming in for Najee Johnson. And if you looked at the stats, Najee Johnson, according to Pro Football Focus, he was targeted 12 times against Buffalo. A week later, he was targeted 8 times by Bryce Young. And Young was able to find some open receivers, even though the pass rush was there. He's allowing Najee Johnson, that is, for almost 15 yards a catch, by far the most by any defensive back on the team. When Josh Williams came in against the Raiders, how many catches did Josh Williams allow? This many. 0. Now, I know what people are going to say, Farzine, it's Aiden O'Connell. It's not that impressive. Well, Aiden O'Connell actually had a solid game. Actually, that's not even doing justice. I mean, he had a really good game. He actually torched Najee Johnson for a 43-yard reception. He was actually beating Trent McDuffie in the game. Josh Williams didn't allow a single reception on 33 passing snaps that he was a part of. So, I don't know why it took a while. He kind of had a rough Super Bowl last year, Josh Williams, that is. But man, he's had some great moments in the past as well. I still remember that AFC Championship game against the Bengals when Josh Williams and Jalen Watson, they were both rookies that year, came away with interceptions. Josh Williams played a lot his rookie season because of the Trent McDuffie injury. So he got involved more than a lot of people thought he would get involved his rookie season. So I like what I've seen from Josh Williams in the past. I'm not sure why it took so long, but I know Spags has always been high on Najee Johnson, so I guess they just wanted to try him out more. But now, that big spot that Jalen Watson was doing a good job of, that has gone down tremendously. And now they're hoping Josh Williams can fill that void. So not only do you have a new number 2 quarterback that's supposed to start for you in Josh Williams, you're hoping that the Chiefs will have a new starting left tackle in DJ Humphries. I hope it's DJ Humphries. My prediction, I think Wanya Morris will start the game, and I hope I'm wrong on this, but I think Wanya Morris is going to start the game. And if Wanya Morris continues to struggle, they're yanking him out and they're putting DJ Humphries in. And I would expect that in the first quarter. And now if Wanya Morris somehow plays great, cool. But against, Tupi Lodo, Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa, I'm not expecting that. And actually, now that I think of it, because of those names right there, I think you got to start DJ Humphries. Don't even waste a single play. You just can't do it. You got to put DJ Humphries back out there. You've got to. The more I think about it. So yeah, that is a lot of things going on with the Chiefs on their roster. Probably going to have a new left tackle and a different starting cornerback, CB2 that is, for this week. I get comments like this on Facebook from time to time. Hello, dear. Can we chat private on here? Inbox me. I always want to respond and just be sarcastic, but it's like, nah, piss off, spammer. Yeah, I agree. Humphries definitely needs to play. It's got to happen, but it's like you got to make that switch. You got to make that switch. It has to happen. Quick look at the injury report. The Chiefs have a very thin injury report. And I said this, people were like, yeah, well, half the team's on IR. Oh, okay. I mean, listen, you got a serviceable kicker for now. You just got 2 players off of IR. Hollywood's coming back soon, so it's not like you have. Yeah, people are acting like you've got the entire roster on IR. The Chiefs are actually getting healthier at this time. They only had 3 players on the injury report: Noah Gray, Charles Omenihu, and Juwan Taylor. And before people ask, "Oh my God, what's wrong with Noah Gray?" Everybody was a full participant in practice. So this is rare. You do not get this in December. So as much as the Chiefs have dealt with the injury bug, and now recently they're getting healthier, and they have a very thin injury report, and Hollywood Brown is gonna start practicing real soon here. Love it. Man, if you can stay healthy in these next couple of weeks and get Hollywood Brown back, look out. You got Kareem Hunt and Isaiah Pacheco in the backfield. And for your wide receivers, you're going to have DeAndre Hopkins, Hollywood Brown, Xavier Worthy, Juju Smith-Schuster, Justin Watson. Like, you can't ask for a better receiving core. I mean, it sucks Rashee Rice is not going to be a part of this, but that is still a unit that can win a championship. That is still a unit that can win a championship for you, 100%. And for tight ends, you got Travis Kelce and Noah Gray. I mean, you've got some serious depth on offense across the board. That's why if that left tackle spot can improve, a lot of other things will fall into place with the Chiefs. A lot of other things will fall into place with the Chiefs. As far as the Chargers, let's see. Deion Henley, who was their leading tackler and one of the leading tacklers in the NFL, did not practice. And Khalil Mack did not practice, but that is not injury related. That is more for rest purposes, which is very similar for what Tamba Ali had in his career over the years. Speaking of the Chargers, let's go ahead and get into that game here. Chiefs, Chargers, Sunday Night Football. The referee for this game is Bill Vinovich. He was the referee for Super Bowl 58. So, yeah, Chiefs definitely like this guy. Start those conspiracy theories. This is going to be on NBC. Mike Tirico, Chris Collinsworth calling this game. I believe Mike Tirico had surgery recently, so I think there was kind of a question as to whether or not he would announce this game, and then maybe they would have another guy for NBC step in. But no, it is going to be Mike Tirico indeed. The Chiefs are favored in this game by 4.5. At least that's what they opened up with. Let me double check and make sure that is still the line. The Chiefs are minus 198 favorites, whereas the Chargers are plus 146 underdogs. For the money line purposes there. And now the Chiefs are 4-point favorites. So that line has moved a little bit, which is very common. It's only by 0.5 point. So not a huge deal at the end of the day. Chargers head coach Jim Harbaugh. I know when I talk about the head coach and the assistants, I go over their background, but we've already done that with Harbaugh. Everyone knows what they need to know about Harbaugh coming off that very successful run with Michigan. So we won't spend too much time on that. Their offensive coordinator was in Baltimore from 2017 to 2022. The former assistant coach of the year winner. And I don't have his name in front of me. I don't know why. I have all the things you need to know about him, but not the Greg Roman. That's who it is. Yeah, Greg Roman came over from Baltimore. Former assistant coach of the year, which they started in 2014. Guys like Wade Phillips, Kyle Shanahan, Vic Fangio, Brian Daboll, Dan Quinn, D'Amico Ryans, guys who have won it in the past, Jim Schwartz, some very familiar names on that list in the short amount of time that award has been around. Let's look at the Chargers offense right now in all of the rankings. They are 24th in total offense, same ranking when it comes to their pass offense, 18th in running the football, 18th in scoring, averaging 21.7 points per game. They've got the 18th best third down offense, converting 38% of the time. And when it comes to their red zone offense, they are tied 21st, scoring a touchdown on 53% of their red zone trips. Justin Herbert kind of having a bit of an interesting year, has over 2,500 yards, 13 touchdowns, has just one pick on the year. That interception was in week 2 against Carolina. So he's done a really good job of taking care of the football, but those touchdown numbers are fairly low also. 13 touchdowns in 12 games for Justin Herbert. He's been sacked 32 times, tied 7th in the NFL for most sacks taken. Who is he tied with? Your favorite quarterback, Patrick Mahomes. Last week against the Falcons, Herbert hardly had to do anything. He was 16 of 23 for 147 yards, one of the more quiet games he's had on the season. Not the fewest passing yards, but one of the more quiet games he's had this year. No touchdowns, no picks. 2 games in a row he's had no touchdowns and no picks. 5 sacks, so he and Mahomes both coming off 5 sack games. Was sacked 4 times 2 weeks ago on Monday Night Football against the Ravens. And again, no touchdowns 2 games in a row from Justin Herbert. So it's going to be interesting to see. And I'll get into the Chargers defense because they absolutely carried the offense in this game. J.K. Dobbins was recently placed on IR, so he is done for the year, out with a knee injury. So filling in and the first game without Dobbins was Gus Edwards. He ran the ball 6 times for 32 yards against Atlanta. Season-wide, he's averaging 3.4 yards per carry off 69 carries. The rookie Kimani Vidal, he ran 4 times for 20 yards against the Falcons. His season average is 4.2 yards per carry off of 50 carries. Hassan Haskins, I believe they let him run the ball early on. He had 1 carry and he fumbled against the Falcons and he was pulled from the game. Did not touch the ball at all the rest of the game. Rookie wide receiver Ladd McConkey, he's having a really good rookie campaign, 815 yards. That is 13th most in the NFL. That is the most by a rookie wide receiver, and that is the second most among all rookies. Obviously, number 1 is Brock Bowers, who's having a phenomenal season. 4 touchdown receptions for McConkey. He had 9 catches for 117 yards off 12 targets last week. The second best wide receiver for the Chargers was Quentin Johnston. Had 2 catches for 12 yards. So he had McConkey for 117 yards. Next best guy, Johnston for 12 yards. So obviously a big gap there. Johnston's done a good job for the Chargers. He has the most touchdown catches with 6, but he's got 24 catches for 366 yards. And keep in mind, this is a team that had to release a lot of good wide receivers due to cap concerns. Another wide receiver, Joshua Palmer, he has 414 receiving yards, just 1 touchdown on the year. His best game was against the Saints, where he had 72 yards in that game. Their tight end, Will Dissly, he has 41 catches, almost 400 yards, 1 touchdown. He had 80 yards against the Bengals and also had a touchdown in that game. He also had 81 yards against the Cardinals in a game earlier this year. When it comes to their offensive line, there are some inconsistencies there. Rashawn Slater and rookie Joe Alt, those are the offensive tackles. They did not play the last time the Chiefs and Chargers played. In fact, the Chargers were missing a lot of guys the last time these 2 teams played in week 4. But when you look at Rashawn Slater, he's allowed 14 pressures, 3 sacks on the year. As far as the rookie Alt goes, he's kind of had an up and down season, 15 pressures, 5 sacks allowed. That ties the most on the team for sacks allowed. Trey Pipkins, a third, their right guard, has allowed 20 pressures and 5 sacks. Their left guard, Zion Johnson, he's probably been their worst offensive lineman, 23 pressures allowed and 4 sacks on the season. Bradley Bozeman, a good center for them. And some props to Bozeman. He was a guy who kind of stepped up when somebody was trying to twist Justin Herbert's ankle, which I know who was it? TJ Watt recently did that. Was caught doing that on camera to Joe Burrow. I mean, which is just BS. You can't be doing that kind of thing at all. But that is the Chargers offense in a nutshell there. The Chargers defense, coordinated by Jesse Minter. He was a defensive coordinator for Michigan the last 2 years, so obviously following Harbaugh to LA. 14th in total defense, 10th against the pass, 14th against the run. Number 1, the best in the NFL in points per game allowed. They have the 3rd best red zone defense. and they have the second best third down defense, allowing a third down conversion just 33% of the time. So pretty good defensive numbers there. And it certainly makes sense when you have a guy like Minter who's been very successful. And again, the Chargers, they're allowing less than 16 points per game, 15.7 points per game. To give you an idea, Detroit has the next best. They're at 16.9. Still very, very good for Detroit. In fact, that's great. But it's just, not as close to the Chargers. And if you look at the last time the Chiefs and Chargers played, the Chiefs scored 17 points. Didn't score a single point in the first quarter, and they had to gradually rally to keep the Chargers at 10 points after they got off to a 10-0 start off of those two turnovers, and they didn't score the rest of the way. They came close, but they went for it on fourth down and they missed. So the Chiefs offense, they'll definitely have their hands full against this Chargers defense. And I think this is going to be very important when you look at their pass rushers. Tui Pelotu, I mentioned 7 sacks, 9 tackles for a loss. Bud Dupree has 5 sacks and 5 tackles for a loss. They're kind of keeping an eye on Bud Dupree because he is dealing with an injury. What was the injury for Bud Dupree, by the way? It is a heel injury, so he was limited in practice. We'll see what happens with him as the week goes on. You also have Khalil Mack, who's got 4.5 sacks and 5 tackles for a loss. Joey Bosa, not having as big of a season, but he's got 3 sacks on the year. So they've got, they don't have a Trey Hendrickson or, an elite standout at the edge rusher position, but they got a lot of guys who get involved with that pass rushing unit. So yeah, DJ Humphrey's definitely going to need to start in this game. I don't think you can really waste any time. We mentioned Henley did not practice. He's 6th in the NFL in tackles with 114. He's also got 6 tackles for a loss. Derwin James was suspended the last time the Chiefs and Chargers played because of an illegal tackle. He was caught for it. I think it was a repeat offense there, so they suspended him the last time the Chiefs and Chargers played. He got his first interception of the year last week against Kirk Cousins. In fact, Kirk Cousins threw 4 picks in that game, including a pick 6. One of those pick 6s went to Tarheeb Still. It was on a 4th down play, and Cousins just completely telegraphed that. The wide receiver kind of ran a lazy route also, but still just completely picked up on it, took the ball and ran to the house. That was actually his second touchdown of the game. So he had a 61-yard pick 6 last week on a 4th down play. And that was his, like I said, second interception. Marcus May, the other safety for the Chargers, he got his first interception of the season also on Kirk Cousins. And they also got Elijah Molden, who's got 3 picks on the year. So the Chargers secondary, they had a nice little party last week. And I like Kirk Cousins, but he's just kind of been having an off year in the second half of the season. He really has. Looking at the Chargers special teams, Ryan Ficken, longtime Vikings assistant, he coached the positions on offense, running backs and wide receivers, then transitioned to special teams in 2013 and made his way to the Chargers in 2021. Cameron Dicker the kicker, 27 of 29 field goals. His longest this year is a 59-yarder against Arizona. He was 3 of 3 last week against the Falcons. The longest he made last week was from 51 yards. Has not missed a field goal since week 9, and we are going into week 14. So he's obviously been doing better lately. J.K. Scott, 20th in punt average, 11th in the net yards punting. Their wide receiver, Darius David, he averages 31 yards per return, per kick return, that is. And as far as punt returns go, he's averaging just a little over 14 and a half yards per punt return. His longest kick return of the year is 56 yards. We haven't seen a lot of exciting plays on kick returns this year, but that has been one of the better kick returns in the NFL this season. Okay, so that is Chiefs versus Chargers in a nutshell. David, I appreciate you phonetically spelling my name. Farzine, yes. It's funny, I'll go somewhere and I might get recognized by someone, and people will say, "Hey, Farzin, I love your podcast." I'm like, "Thanks," but I say my name at the beginning and end of every podcast, but that's okay. I appreciate you guys. My score prediction for this one, I'm going to go Chiefs 23, Chargers 17. By the way, one important thing I did not mention, the Falcons were actually playing really well in the first quarter. They ran the ball for 48 yards on the Chargers defense. Run the damn ball. Will they do it? I don't know. I hope so. Look, I know it's not Andy Reid's MO. I've said that millions of times, but you just got to understand this season has just been a difference. Offense has been different under Matt Nagy. It really has. So if you're Andy Reid and the Chiefs, and by the way, comment below with your score predictions. I'd love to read a couple of those before we get out of here. Anthony's asking who's the ref. It is Bill Vinovich, the guy who was the referee in Super Bowl 58. So yeah, Chiefs fans, you don't need to do any Venmos or anything. You're in good hands. I'm just thinking, if you run the ball, that can be effective for the Chiefs with Pacheco and Hunt. If the left tackle pass protection is better, boy, I just think that's really going to bode well. And I think if you can pressure Justin Herbert, who has not been doing very well against the pressure, you've got a really good chance to win this football game. So my three keys: run the ball, pass protection from Mahomes, and pressure Herbert. You do those three things, you're winning the game. Isaiah Pacheco, he was, getting back into things here. It was his first game back, so I can understand holding him to just 7 carries. Let's give him some more. Let's give him about 10, 11, 12 carries. Let's let Kareem Hunt get about the same amount. And if they're doing well, they've got the hot hand, keep feeding it to him. Yeah, I'd like to see Travis Kelce get that record, the franchise record for most touchdowns in Chiefs history. But look, maybe that just happens on the road and it doesn't happen at home. I don't know. Maybe they trick him, because if you can run the football more and wear out that Chargers defense, that'll open up the play action, and you can maybe try that deep throw down the field to Worthy and see if a change in offensive tackles, left tackle, allows you to be able to step up and make that throw and hit him on time. I'd like to see that. I'd like to see that happen in this game. Let's see that happen. 23-17. That is my score prediction in this game. Ben says 30-24 Chiefs. Lewis says 28-17. So, yeah, I see a couple of your guys' score predictions here. People picking the Chiefs. Anthony's going 17-16. Win with a fumble recovery with Josh Williams, with the Chargers trying to run the clock out, up 6. Okay, I'll take that one. I will go ahead and take that for sure. Certainly not going to complain if that's how the Chiefs find a way to win. Would be weird, but I'll take that. Hey, Red Friday live chat. It is going to be at an earlier time. It is going to be around Friday, 2:00 after the Chiefs press conference and after the injury report comes out. As far as our special guest, we do have a special guest. That'll be Friday late afternoon. I want to tell you who it is, but we can't do it quite yet. So you guys are going to have to wait a couple more days, but come back in less than 48 hours. We have a very special guest joining the podcast. I'll give you a hint. He is a Chiefs Hall of Famer. And this is a guy that I've been wanting on the podcast for quite some time. So I think you guys will love it. I hope you guys love it, because if you don't, I'll actually be sad. I really will be sad. So hopefully you guys really like the guests we have lined up for you this Friday, late afternoon. Going to be around 5:00. So that's what we're aiming for. So be on the lookout for that. Sunday, I will do a live stream, but we will not be doing a traditional pregame live stream. There will not be a halftime live stream. There will not be a postgame podcast. However, there will be a postgame live stream. If you're wondering why a change for Sunday night, I'm going to be on vacation. Yes, I am going to be on vacation. So some things are going to be different. There will be a podcast next Wednesday, like we're doing right now. We'll preview the game between the Chiefs and I think Browns. That's the next game. It is going to be a shorter podcast because I will be on vacation, so we won't be able to do a lengthy podcast like we normally do. So just be aware of all of that. So a couple of changes in the week. There will not be a Red Friday live chat next Friday because I'll still be on vacation. So yeah, I will be home for the game though. I will be home for the Chiefs Browns game. So no worries about that. Okay, guys, I'm Farzine Vasugian. I am out of here. Appreciate you guys joining me for this episode of the Chiefs Zone Podcast. If you enjoyed this podcast, let a friend know, share the links, let them know about the podcast, give this video a like on Facebook and YouTube, subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't done so already. Greatly appreciate those who've been sharing the links. This has been by far been the best year with our podcast and social media content. So big ups to all of you guys. You guys are the real MVPs of the podcast. So I appreciate all of you guys, everything you have done. All right, enjoy the rest of your Wednesday night. I am out. Peace.